Today I'm going to be talking about one of my biggest regrets when it comes to watercolor. Since it's the new year, and most people, including myself around this time, are talking about goals and New Year's resolutions and things that they plan to do for the upcoming year, I wanted to divert from that a little bit and talk about my biggest regrets when it comes specifically to art and watercolor. So I have been doing watercolor for a very, very long time. I'm not even going to talk about how long because that will age me. But I've been doing it for a very long time. And one of my biggest regrets looking back over the years with watercolor is that I didn't push myself to basically explore color more. A lot of times, and you've probably seen it on the channel, when I paint my animals, I paint them in the traditional colors. So a lot of browns, a lot of blacks, a lot of just neutrals. There's a lot of neutrals. And I feel like I understand those colors really well, but I don't have a good grasp on what colors specifically for the color wheel mix really well and what colors go really well together, especially in kind of abstracts and patterns and stuff like that. And I've always really, really loved that art style, but I've always been very intimidated by it because I felt like I never attempted to really go into that art style. And so that kind of felt unfamiliar to me, and I was worried about just tackling something that was unfamiliar to me. I wanted to stay in my comfort zones, which in hindsight, that was probably the worst thing I could have done. The best thing that you can do whenever you are fearful of something is to tackle it. Think about when we're kids. We don't have this fear or this anxiety about trying something new because everything is new. But as kids, we don't worry about those things because it's new and we're processing it and trying to just familiarize ourselves with the world around us, and we don't know what is necessarily wrong, the rules basically to certain subjects. And I love to work with 2-year-olds. I did about 3 years in a daycare setting working with 2-year-olds. And one of the things that I absolutely loved working with 2-year-olds was that everything was a new experience for them. So like bubbles was new, and just playing around with finger paints was new, and there was no wrong. Like when we're trying to mix colors, we're always like, oh, I can't mix them too close together. Or too many colors because that's going to make a dirty poopy color. Whereas kids, the first thing they do is try and mix all the colors together because they're trying to figure out, what does this look like? I like them when they're all mixed together. And then, oh no, they're starting to make brown color. What else can I make if I continue to mix them? Are they continuing to be brown? So my goal this year, needless to say, after all of that explanation, is I really want to play around more with color. I have a really good understanding of like color mixing and getting the color that I desire, I would say, but understanding what colors work together, especially if it's kind of out of the box colors, such as if I put an orange next to a pink, which pink looks best with that orange? Or if I do a green with, let's say, a yellow, which yellow looks best with that green? That is a little bit more unfamiliar to me. Whereas trying to figure out, okay, I want to make more of an olive green, I can look typically at the colors that I have in my palette and go, okay, I know that this color and this color together will make olive green for me. But trying to figure out what two colors, if I'm working in more of a wet on wet and a more loose feel with watercolor, which two colors would really merge well together, and which colors don't really do that well together, and have this be more of an exploratory year where I am just allowing myself the freedom to make mistakes, to play around, and also to explore different supplies that I haven't really touched in a really long time. So a couple of supplies that I have absolutely loved playing around with in the past were watercolor concentrates, but I steered away from them because they're not light fast. And I'm really disappointed in myself that I steered away from them for that reason, because they were supplies that I absolutely fell in love with. I loved working with them. They just made me giddy, almost like that childlike love of art. And so I'm going to be incorporating those back into my art, but I'm trying to choose concentrates, watercolor concentrates specifically, that match up to my light fast colors, so that if I decide to teach a watercolor tutorial, you can use the watercolor concentrates with basically the light fast colors, or you can just use the light fast colors and the color scheme of the painting will be pretty much exactly the same. So I felt like that was a really good compromise where I could still teach watercolor to those who want to keep the light fast colors and play around with those. But at the same time, it's giving me a little bit more freedom to play around with watercolor concentrates and see basically what they do in certain scenarios. So that's one supply that I'm definitely adding in this year. Another supply that I started playing around with last year was colored pencils. I have absolutely fallen in love with adding color pencil basically marks to my paintings. I'm really trying to get back to that. I don't care if I put a scribble in this area and make my illustrations a bit more loose and a bit more of that childlike exploration where you have a scribble here and a scribble there and there's really no rhyme or reason. I'm trying to grasp more of that within my paintings. And another supply that I'm also adding this year is gouache. I actually took a course on gouache when I was in high school, and to be honest, I did not like it. I think part of it was because I didn't really like the teacher that was teaching at the time, but I honestly steered away from it because I was like, this is just not a supply that I like. However, I've noticed online that some artists who are using gouache and they're kind of using it in different ways, I really, really like their art. So they're using it more as they'll use their watercolor kind of as a base, and then they'll add their gouache on top to just kind of add little details or pops or patterns, such as highlights or just stripes or little dots. And since gouache is an opaque watercolor, it paints very similar to watercolor, but it at the same time is going to stand out, especially when you are painting with more transparent watercolor. It's just going to have a slightly different look to it. And if you use it in patterns or you use it as accents in your painting, I find that I really like that particular style. And I want to add that more into my art, kind of the lighter feel of watercolor, but then the stark contrast of adding those stripes or those patterns or those highlights with the gouache, which is a heavier style of paint, but still considered watercolor. And that is how this little penguin was born. So for this little penguin, I used all of my basic watercolors as well as adding watercolor concentrates. And I also added color pencils as well as my white ink, which I always do, and also gouache on top of it. And I really like the way he turned out. I feel like I can do a lot more and I can expand on this particular style. I also wanted to challenge myself, and I specifically chose basically contrasting colors. So I chose a little bit of blue, as well as purple and a little bit of yellow and orange. Those are more kind of contrasting colors on the color wheel. I really wanted to push myself to use more dramatic colors and choose colors that are not the ordinary colors that you would think of for this particular animal, a penguin. And I enjoyed really doing this, and I'm going to do this more this year. I can't wait to kind of watch my growth over the next couple of weeks to months, especially while I prepare for baby. A lot of these illustrations are most likely going to be illustrations in the baby's room, which are kind of also helping with the, I want to be more whimsical and have more colors. I've never really liked, per se, a neutral baby room. I've always liked baby rooms that have a lot of color and contrast. So I'm trying to do illustrations that kind of work with that as well. So if you are ready to come on this journey with me and, kind of learn with me as I go and explore new colors. This is kind of what the content's going to be. I also have some tutorials coming up that I'm planning on doing. In fact, I want y'all to comment down below. I have 2 illustrations, actually 1 illustration that is painted in Procreate 2 different ways. I always paint my illustrations in Procreate first to kind of get an idea of color-wise what I want to basically tackle the drawing with, color-wise. So I have 2 ideas for my bunny in the moon, and I promised y'all I would do a moon illustration for January, and I think it's really cool. The moon as basically a new start, and it's winter and it's cold. So I have something that is more contrasting colors with the blue and the yellow. And I'll show that here. That would be number 1. And then number 2 is a little bit more traditional, but it still has the fun little quirky colors. That would be number 2. So if you like number 1 with the blues and the yellow, please make sure to comment down below that you want me to basically teach that color scheme with that drawing. This drawing will be available to purchase, and the tutorial will be on YouTube. But I'm just trying to figure out which way y'all would like me to paint it. And the number 2 is more of, I would say, the traditional side. It does have a gray rabbit instead of doing the funky colors, but I still consider it a fun kind of exploration of colors because it has the bright moon and then the colors of the solar system and stuff like that. So let me know which one you would prefer in the future, and we will go from there, and I will continue to play around with color this year and basically a lot of different supplies. So lots of love, y'all, and I will see you next time. Oh, and if you want to know more about specifically the paints that I'm using, such as which colors I'm using and which watercolor concentrates, I'm going to make a video specifically for inside of Watercolor Misfitland. I'm also going to make a blog post. If I finish it when this video releases, I'll link it down below. If not, just be aware that's coming. And I'll be talking, though, in a video inside of Watercolor Misfitland more in depth about the specific paint colors and watercolor concentrates, as well as what brand of pencils I'm using, which ones I'm playing around with, and also what brand of gouache I'm using. So if you're interested in that, make sure to hop on over to Watercolor Misfitland, and I will make sure to make that video available. So lots of love, y'all, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.